Preview.
Hello and welcome. My name is Zafar Iqbal, and you are watching the Mojo story. The joint statement by Saudi Arabia and Pakistan after a meeting between Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif and Mohammed bin Salman, the ruler of Saudi Arabia, has called for a bilateral dialogue between India and Pakistan to resolve all the issues, including the issue of Jammu and Kashmir. There's no mention of the United Nations Security Council resolution as far as Jammu and Kashmir is concerned. Now, this rather echoes with the Indian stance on Kashmir being an internal matter and also as a bilateral matter between India and Pakistan. India has been emphasizing that the issue can be only resolved bilaterally between the two countries. However, Pakistan has been always wanting to internationalize this issue, and now it's come this joint statement clearly mentioning that it can be bilaterally solved by the two countries without any third party intervention, and that's precisely what Indian stand has been. We have an eminent panel to discuss this issue. We joined by Major General Dhruv Katoch, a defense analyst. Welcome to the show, sir. We're also joined by Ambassador Dilip Sinha. Welcome to the show, sir. And we'll also be joined from Jammu by Zafar Chaudhry, who is a journalist and a political commentator. Welcome to the show, Zafar Saab.
Thank you.
If I may ask, start with you only, Zafar Saab. How do you see this joint statement? It is a departure from the general statements that we've been seeing in the past between India and Pakistan. This one clearly talks about a bilateral sort of a discussion as far as issue resolution is concerned, particularly specifically mentioning the issue of Jammu and Kashmir as well.
Well, I've been saying since morning that there is a number of commentators in India that have been saying that this echoes India's stand, that Saudi has appreciated greatly India's narrative on Jammu and Kashmir. I don't think that it has entirely echoed, because India would certainly want no international power to talk about Jammu and Kashmir, or encourage India to talk to Pakistan about Jammu and Kashmir. India considers Jammu and Kashmir entirely an internal matter. And if at all a discussion has to happen with Pakistan, that has to be a process between India and Pakistan, and that has to be on terrorism and the areas held, the territory of India that is under control of Pakistan. However, this statement is significant in many ways because it's a great evolution in the bilateral relationship between India and Saudi Arabia's narrative on Jammu and Kashmir. Because far from appreciating Pakistan's stand on Jammu and Kashmir, Saudi Arabia has been greatly appreciating India's stand. And it has to be seen, the evolution has to be seen over a gradual process over the last 20 years since 2006 visit of the Saudi king to India and the Indian Prime Minister to Saudi Arabia. And particularly since 2019, when Pakistan at one point in time appeared to be threatening Saudi Arabia to walk out of a relationship which it describes as a brotherly relationship, has been reiterated in today's statement, yesterday's statement as well, that Saudi Arabia was not taking enough interest on, to support Pakistan's narrative on Kashmir, particularly after 2019. And since 2019, there have been at least 8 high-profile Indian ministerial visits to Saudi Arabia and 16 Saudi, ministerial visits to India. So that relationship has deepened. There is one thing that, including Saudi Arabia, the greater international community has started to appreciate India's narrative on Kashmir, particularly after the Supreme Court decision on the August 2019 initiative of abrogating Article 370. That fundamentally changes the constitutional and legal relationship as the international communities would earlier see. One quick comment that I would like to make here is that this reminds me of an interesting anecdote of early 1960s when Prime Minister Nehru sent a veteran political leader from Kashmir to talk to the international community, which tended to appreciate Pakistan's narrative more on Kashmir rather than India's narrative. So Sayyid Mir Qasim, he writes in his autobiography that he came back and he narrated to Nehru that whichever world capital he went to, he found that the international community appreciated Pakistan's narrative more closely on Kashmir than India's narrative. So this is an evolutionary process, and it has taken a very long journey. If today, a year earlier, Pakistan was at a meeting of the International Islamic Organization Contact Program in Kashmir, Saudi Arabia was saying that with due respect to the international resolutions on Kashmir, a way forward has to be found. And today they are saying that there has to be a bilateral engagement. So that is a huge evolution, but that has still to reach a point where India would want every international power to appreciate India's stand that it is entirely an internal matter.
Right.
Yeah,
That was, you summed it up, Zafar Saab. You connected the dots. But I remember in 2019 when Pakistan, which was at that time led by Imran Khan, threatened to call off its relationship with Saudi Arabia because they
that's
wanted
right.
Saudi Arabia's engagement as far
That's
as
right.
Kashmir issue is concerned. And they were also asking for a foreign ministers meeting of the OIC countries, which Saudis were not agreeing upon.
Interested.
And that is
Yeah.
that is perhaps that became one of the reasons for Imran Khan's ouster, because that's the time when he started developing that friction with the establishment, the military there, because they
That's right.
thought
That's
that
right.
perhaps
So that's a huge
he
diplomatic
he
win for India.
yes, he's sort of disturbing their relations with other countries. He's damaging them. But coming to you, Dilip Sinha Saab, uh, it is a diplomatic win for India, as Zafar Saab says. It's an evolution that's happened over the time. Perhaps 10 years ago, 20 years ago, it would not have been thought that a statement would come without the mention of Jammu and Kashmir, and specifically a thrust on United Nations Security Council resolution. Of course, there is the K word in that joint statement, but it's that the two countries should discuss it and resolve it bilaterally.
Well, you are quite right, and Zafar Saab is quite right in saying that India's relations with Saudi Arabia, particularly, and the Arab world in general, have improved considerably. And today, the world is completely different from what it was, let us say, 20 years ago. Relations between India and Saudi Arabia are extremely strong today at all levels, political, economic, and people to people level. Saudi Arabia itself has evolved considerably from what it was even 10 years ago under the leadership of Mohammed bin Salman. So it's a different world today uh, uh, in terms of Saudi Arabia and Saudi Arabia's relations with India. Uh, on India's policy on Kashmir, we have to understand that the policy is highly nuanced and there's a
Yeah,
degree of undulation in that policy. But
yeah,
nevertheless, the statement that has been made, the joint statement of Pakistan and Saudi Arabia, certainly falls within the cadence of that policy. But we should not gloat over it too much, because we must remember that when we talk about bilateral and no third party interference, other countries don't necessarily see it that way, because when they offer their good officers, they think they are doing a good thing by trying to offer their good officers to mediate in the matter. And Saudi Arabia itself, the foreign minister, as Zafar Saab mentioned in the OIC contact group on last year in October in the margins of the General Assembly, he said that Saudi Arabia is always trying to mediate between India and Pakistan to bring about a peaceful resolution of the dispute. So that means that although they have deleted or not made a reference to that offer of mediation, the fact is that they do not see the offer of mediation as an interference in India's internal
right.
affairs, but as a way to resolve a dispute. And from India's point of view, the very fact that Pakistan has gone to a third country, and in that joint statement, there is a reference to Jammu and Kashmir or the Kashmir dispute, that itself is objectionable. Today, we are a little more tolerant because we are confident of our relations with Saudi Arabia. But perhaps some years ago, we would have taken umbrage at the very fact that this reference to Kashmir was included in joint statement. So we have to take it in our stride. It certainly is a good statement. It is. We don't have to. We can be pleased about it, but there's no reason to gloat over it.
Right. You have looked at it from an entirely different point of view, that other countries do offer their good offices in good faith. They say that perhaps they will try and resolve this issue. But since India has developed its relationship with Saudi Arabia, so perhaps just the mention of Jammu and Kashmir would have otherwise drawn a strong reaction from India otherwise. But Major General Dhruv Katoch, we saw that Guardian article a few days ago where that story said that 20 terrorists in Pakistan have been killed since the Pulwama attack in covert operations by India. Of course, India said that uh, all of that is malicious and it's a proper anti-India propaganda. But that was followed by Defense Minister Rajnath Singh, who said that if terrorists attack India and Indian interests and they run to Pakistan or to other country, then India is going to chase them there and to ghar mein ghuskar marna. He used that, that India is not going to uh, just give them that opportunity of a safe haven in Pakistan. Do you think that today's India, which is stronger and which is more assertive, is also a reason that that we're seeing those changing dynamics on the international stage?
Thank you, Zafar Sam. You see, the way I look at it is first, I just want to deviate a little bit, from my I totally agree with the two co-panelists, from Mr. Zafar Chowdhury and Ambassador Dilip Sinha. I would just like to add one additional point. When this statement was signed, uh, yes, I totally agree. Perhaps it was not required. There was no need to sort of put in this because it is something to do with Pakistan and Saudi Arabia. But I think this was a sort of a fig leaf which the Saudis threw to the Pakistanis. Okay, we'll put it in somewhere, but we'll couch it in such a way that okay, India's a big country, they'll ignore it, and which I think we are doing. The point is for Pakistan, I think it is very beneficial. Besides this statement, because the Kashmir has been mentioned, they've also got $5 billion. So now Shehbaz Sharif can go back to his country and say, "देखिए, मैं Saudi में गया था और I've got this much." I think it is really to sort of appease the public within Pakistan. That is it. Now, regarding the operative part of what you asked me, you see the assertive policy of India, the more assertive policy. You know, when we are looking at the Arab world or any other part of the world, the point is today economics drives relationships. And India is an emerging economy. It's a very strong economy, and it is only going to go stronger from here. Yeah, you see, we are not aiming at, at some point of time, people said we're aiming at a $5 trillion economy. And about 3 years ago, one of our commentators said, he said, why are you talking about five? Let's talk of 10. And today, we aren't even talking of 10. We are saying, okay, but 1947, let's become 30 trillion. And by the time we come to another 20 years, I think I really don't know where we'll be going. The talk is, the buzz is totally different. We are in a different zone. We are in a different orbit, so to say. And Pakistan is nowhere in that orbit. So when people are dealing with us, they know which side they're dealing on. Uh, in all these things, ideology, religion, all other aspects take a backseat. The driving force is the economy, and India and the world wants to do business with India. Now, regarding the two things, which one, India has denied that it has those killings which are taking place in Pakistan of terrorists, that India hasn't handled it. And at the same time, the Raksha Mantri has stated कि जहां पर भी जाएंगे हम घुस के मारेंगे. Now there is a very subtle difference. Actually, there's a very subtle difference in these two statements. The point is, जब हम घर के घुस पे मारेंगे, we will announce it to the world. Twice we have said it. When we carried out the cross-border strikes on, I think there are about 10 to 15 localities or so, right?
Yeah.
The DGMO of the Indian Army came on the public platform and for the first time gave a public statement, we have done it. And then, of course, you saw the aerial attack, the Balakot episode. It was announced loud and clear to the world. And that time we said, if a terrorist is hiding in Pakistan, we will get him. We announced it. Now, this particular killing, whether it has been done by our agencies or by Pakistan themselves or by the US or by anybody else, in these games, nobody knows. But the fact is that the MEA has denied it. And I will take that denial at face value because it will be correct. If we had to advertise it, we'll say so. There is nothing to be, if we are going to get somebody there, the way we destroyed those terrorist camps in the cross-border strikes or in the Balakot air attack, we will be upfront about it because that gives a certain different level of confidence and, the power of the state. to make it very clear to them that, listen, we are not going to confine our operations simply to Indian territory. If
Yeah,
required, we will go abroad the way the Americans do it. And you would
yeah,
have noticed that after these two attacks, the Americans, the Europeans, and everybody else in the world did not utter a word, not one word. So the message was conveyed. And as far as killing one or two odd chappies here, I don't think it's going to be worth our time, to sort of do stuff like that. There are enough fissures within Pakistan. There are enough people who want to climb the ladder and do whatever they have to do for us to actually get concerned about it. But as an Indian, if they are getting eliminated, so be it. And I'm happy about it. Zafar.
right. Zafar Saab, Ms. General Dhruv Katoch making that point that Pakistan has also got benefited by this joint statement. The fact that Shehbaz Sharif got the mention of Jammu and Kashmir, of course, he didn't go to Saudi Arabia to discuss the issue of Jammu and Kashmir. He went there
Mm,
for funds.
mm.
Pakistan is getting bankrupt. He wants $5 billion to put the economy back on track. It is a bonus if he gets the mention of Jammu and Kashmir as well, because the primary orientation of the visit was the economy, the funding that Pakistan wants to get from Saudi Arabia.
So I think it's a very small advantage because they've been asking for $20 billion, and that question has been there for last 5 years. And finally, they've been able to get $5 billion in aid, and that's a gradual investment process that has to unfold. And the mention of Kashmir, I don't think that makes as much of a difference because no other international power, no other world capital has been appreciating Pakistan's viewpoint or taking Pakistan's bidding against India. If you compare at how India's relationship is playing out with Saudi Arabia, India is currently second largest trading partner with Saudi Arabia, and Saudi Arabia is India's fourth largest trading partner. I think a lot of people watching this program would be pleasantly surprised to know, if they don't know already, that there are at least 2,800 Indian companies registered in Saudi Arabia. Because you have to look at this thing, that how this is propagandized, that Hindus are not allowed to do businesses in Saudi Arabia, they're not allowed to live or work there. So 2,800 Indian companies are registered in Saudi Arabia in partnerships, are wholly owned, the ownership companies, and their investment in Saudi Arabia is $2 billion. $2 billion is our individual independent businesses in Kashmir, in Saudi Arabia. And similarly, the Saudi Arabian companies who are doing businesses in India, that is $3 billion. And Pakistan is getting just $5 billion of Saudi investment. So India is a huge, it's not a bilateral relationship with Saudi Arabia. India has a huge, deep, mutually respected, strategic relationship with Saudi Arabia. And that is across different sectors. That includes energy, that includes military cooperation, that includes defense production, that includes media, that includes a number of things. So Pakistan, as our earlier colleague said here, that Pakistan does not even figure in that kind of, the emerging relationship that India has with Pakistan, India has with Saudi Arabia. The small mention, of course, I mean, India certainly would not want any country, whatever kind of mention, India would not want any country to encourage India, to encourage New Delhi to enter into a dialogue with Pakistan on Kashmir. So, I mean, whatever elevated suggestion that's being made by any country. So, it's not a great advantage, but yes, it's been 4 or 5 years since Pakistan have been working with Saudi Arabia, and their partnership is very deep. And when Nawaz Sharif was away in exile, so Saudi Arabia, they gave space to Nawaz Sharif, and particularly our South Asian countries have a different kind of. It's not even bilateral relationship. Certain political parties have their own relationship with the other
Yeah.
countries. So in Pakistan's case, the PMLN, which is Shehbaz Sharif's party,
Mm.
they have a better
Yeah.
relationship with the Saudi authorities than PPP or the PPTI. So if they have got this small concession, I don't think that makes a big deal.
Right. Ambassador Dilip Sinha, the point that Zafar Saab articulated very well, the investments and the partnership between India and Saudi Arabia on different levels, on the levels of business and economy, has only grown over the last 10 years. The relationship has really strengthened. On the other hand, as far as Pakistan is concerned, what is happening inside Pakistan, the turmoil, the political instability, the economic, disaster that the country is facing is also diminishing its standing before Saudi Arabia and other international powers and countries. So both of these are playing parallelly, and that is the reason that we are seeing, you know, India being taken more seriously and Indian point of view being accepted rather than a Pakistani point of view. If even it's a $5 billion investment, that's going to come slowly in investment projects, and that will take a lot of time. It's not just one time dole the money that they're giving to Pakistan. So we have to understand the whole thing in a proper context.
Well, yes, you cannot really compare India and Pakistan today at any level. It is only some people in India who keep doing that and then thinking that they have drawn some brownie points. The fact is that internationally, India is in a completely different league now as compared to Pakistan. Pakistan is clutching at straws. Its relations with its three major donors or partners, China, Saudi Arabia, and the US, are in a difficult situation. With China, you have just seen the Chinese workers have been attacked in Pakistan, and there are reports that China is shutting down some of its projects in Pakistan and is sending its own troops to protect its own workers in Pakistan. Now, this is China, which is an all-weather friend of Pakistan. With Saudi Arabia, we know how relations had gone down over the last 5-10 years or so between Pakistan and Saudi Arabia. And of course, the US is a completely different ballgame. Now, with Saudi Arabia, the fact is that none of these countries, China, America, or Saudi Arabia, wants Pakistan to go down the tube. They want to ensure that Pakistan does not collapse. And when when Shehbaz Sharif went to Saudi Arabia, he asked for help. He needed both financial help, and what is very important from Saudi Arabia is a certain amount of political support, because Shehbaz Sharif's own political position inside Pakistan is extremely weak. Imran Khan, who has the support of the Islamic fundamentalists in Pakistan, is far more popular than both Nawaz Sharif and Shehbaz Sharif put together. Now, in this situation, a bit of support from Saudi Arabia, any expression of support from Saudi Arabia, will go a long way in enabling Shehbaz Sharif to come back to Pakistan and say, look, our relations with Saudi Arabia are good and Saudi Arabia is behind us. And since Pakistan makes Kashmir a kind of a touchstone for all its success in foreign policy, therefore, a statement on Kashmir from Saudi Arabia is enough for Shehbaz Sharif to go back and say, look, Imran Khan, it's not only Imran Khan who was talking about Kashmir, even I've been able to get international support on Kashmir. So this is a game that Shehbaz Sharif has to play to survive, and Saudi Arabia is willing to nudge him along on that path. But we all know, Saudi Arabia knows that when it comes to economic and political relations, it is India that is the main partner that Saudi Arabia has in this region.
Right. Major General Dhruv Katoj, how does it matter? There's a mention of Jammu and Kashmir on the joint statement. The fact is that what is happening inside Pakistan, as Ambassador Dilip Sinha was pointing out, terrorist attacks taking place on Chinese projects where Chinese workers are getting killed. It should be a major cause of concern and worry for Pakistan. It is not something that is on the border with India. It is with their all-weather friend China, which has been helping Pakistan diplomatically as well as economically on different levels, and preventing the collapse of that country. Shouldn't that be the cause of concern for Pakistan, and the people of the Pakistan and the government of the Pakistan to focus more on?
Oh, that is true. Of course, the people of Pakistan, the government of Pakistan should focus on that. But, things don't work that way. You require some sort of external, let me use the word enemy, to get your own people together. And then Kashmir becomes a very convenient thing. You whip up Kashmir, the bogey of Kashmir, and try to keep some sort of a semblance of unity within your country. Now, basically, there are three issues, when we are looking at Pakistan. One is their economy, which is in the doldrums and is slipping day by day. I really don't think even that $5 billion is going to bail them out, because no country gives money for free, least of all the Chinese, and the Saudis are not, it's not a gift.
There is no free lunch, as they say.
Even otherwise, this is not a gift, the Saudis are not going to give $5 billion to the Pakistanis. That's not going to happen. So there will be some takeaway from that. The second thing is their internal security situation. Now, just a few days back, we had a Chinese delegation who visited us, and we had a we had very long conversations with them, and they were hopeful of the getting the CPEC through. But then they ultimately, in our discussion, the consensus was there is no way the CPEC can go through with the internal turmoil which is there within Pakistan. So all that money, the $50 billion of dollars or so, or 65 billion or whatever the billions are, which China is putting into that system, it is going to go down the drain because internal security cannot be resolved by the present government or by any other government. And the reason for both these problems, really, as to why they can't get resolved, is the third issue: the polity, the internal politics, political dynamics. Now, if the elections have been, well, I think the elections were held freely, frankly. It was a post-election scenario.
Yeah.
Some things in the pre-election, what they did was, they tried to see that Imran didn't get the votes. But actually, when the people cast their votes, that wasn't fiddled with, that particular process. And to their horror and surprise, they found Imran Khan winning. And then again, they sort of, tried to change the scenario. Imran Khan, I don't like this man. I think he hasn't done too good with Pakistan. But there is no denying the fact he is the most popular leader in Pakistan today. And with him in jail and outside power, I do not think the Sharifs or the Bhuttos or any other people, they can sleep peacefully. That is the political turmoil. Because unless the politicians get together and resolve their political issues, I don't think the issue of economics or the issue of internal security can be addressed. Today, it is a very strange thing, Zafar, that Pakistan has always been referring to India as the enemy, but today the border between India and Pakistan is the most stable, whereas the border between Pakistan and Afghanistan and Pakistan and Iran is totally disrupted. And these are one of the ironies of geopolitics as they are currently existing. So what Pakistan needs is a totally different approach to problems, but they are not going to get those approaches because anybody who tries a friendly approach with India will be ousted politically by the other two opponents. There are three groups there, and that is the way things go. And they had a chance. Just one small point I wish to make. They had a chance in these elections to actually rectify their problems. All the three parties could have got together and said, "Listen, we'll fight. Whoever wins wins, but we'll keep the army out." If they had got together and kept the army out, that would have been the first step in resolving all their issues. It's still a very long road ahead, decades of effort, but that would have been a step. They have not taken that step. Now it doesn't really matter because whichever way it goes, the army wins. The army will take one of these parties. It'll go to bed with them, and the other two may cry foul, but it doesn't make a difference because the system will keep running. And unless that major change takes place, I don't see any hope or resolve as far as Pakistan is concerned, despite the fact that the US or the Saudis or the Chinese don't want the country to collapse. But I'm afraid the collapse or not collapsing is not in their hands. Zafar.
Right. That's a very important point that you raised, that the border with India is more peaceful. Pakistan's border with India compared to its border with Afghanistan and Iran. There have been two exchanges with Afghanistan and Iran recently, two strikes that Pakistan conducted in those two countries. But Zafar Saab, lastly, coming to you, after 2019, when Article 370 was abrogated, Pakistan perhaps would have hoped that situation would erupt in Kashmir, things would go bad, but that didn't happen. Situation has been contained and it's more or less peaceful in many ways. And Jammu and Kashmir is inching forward towards an election. The situation on the ground in Jammu and Kashmir, does it also impact Pakistan's response and the response of the international community as far as Jammu and Kashmir is concerned?
Is that a question to me?
Yes.
I think in this India-Pakistan relationship scheme, this August 5, 2019 was a very, very important moment because Pakistan had thought that, there will be huge reaction from within Jammu and Kashmir, which will enable Pakistan to go to the international community, invite their attention and, seek an intervention. So this was something that Pakistan had imagined that in context of the developments in 1960s, that this Holy Relic issue and following that Pakistan's intervention in 1965 and huge internationalization and almost a war. So that did not happen. The response from Jammu and Kashmir to August 5, 2019 has disappointed Pakistan in a great way. But at the same time, I think some of the elements within Kashmir who had expected Pakistan to, on the basis of what Pakistan's approach has been on Kashmir over the decades. So they also stand disappointed that Pakistan got exposed in a very bad way in its inability to be able to do anything in response to August 5. So I think that's also a huge moment of realization for Pakistan, and also for if Pakistan is left with any friends in the international community to look at the situation in Kashmir, that that does not offer any opportunities of intervention by Pakistan or from their friends internationally.
And perhaps there is a reflection of that in this joint statement
Indeed,
also.
indeed.
That's all the time we have on our show. Thanks so much to all our guests for joining us today, and thanks to our audiences for watching the Mojo story.
It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.